So won't you put those kind of paws up for a while? Let me put my arms around you, let me see you smile. 'Cause no one knows what joy there may be.
Hey, hopefully by now you've seen the short film Abyss that we made. Some of you were asking, and I kind of wanted to do this for y'all, a breakdown and a little bit more behind the scenes of how we shot the video. So today I want to go through the pre-production, the production, and the post-production of this film. I'm very thankful to have won the Gear Focus Film Contest. I think everybody who submitted videos, they were like amazing, and I'm honestly shocked that ours won. But again, today I just want to take you through how we shot it, and at the end I want to share some thoughts on things that I learned and some things that I would change for the next short film. So let's go ahead and start breaking that down. Here's something to understand with storyboarding is I think it's important to really have a plan and execute it well, but I think it's also important when you're working on a short film to be flexible with change. You're going to see that the storyboard images don't perfectly match up to how I wanted the film to actually look. That was just due to different circumstances. You know, it was supposed to open up with like oil leaking on the ground. The reason I didn't do that was I was going to rig up like oil leaking onto dirt on like a wooden board, but I thought that would be problematic for people thinking that I actually like spilt oil on the ground. So we ended up like scrapping that idea, and we just ended up opening up with someone heavy breathing and a guy running through a field trying to get help as the oil rig had blown up. That was kind of the prequel to showcase and set up for the story of the film. Then really Act 1 was kind of just opening up the character where he lives. And what was really cool was we were able to use Justice's grandparents' old like 1970s camper. I wanted to just really kind of show stuff in the camper. So we brought like gloves and oil cans, and we just brought like a coffee maker, and we brought all these cool things. So I really wanted to show the camper, show the space that it was in. Then I wanted to showcase the individual in this space all by himself. One of the shots that I was so excited that we were actually able to replicate was sitting up in bed with a wide shot to show like loneliness of the character, and I think we replicated that almost exactly how I wanted it to be replicated. One of the shots in regards to being flexible was that I wanted the character to walk out of the camper and walk out into the wilderness, and I wanted to show that. This shot was pulled from a beautiful film, Nomadland. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it. It's awesome. And she is at a house and she's overlooking the mountains, and it's just gorgeous. I wanted to replicate that shot, but what's funny is you can probably see it in the shot. The camper was actually in a barn, so we weren't able to really showcase him walking out because there was just a wall right there. So that we kind of had to change that. Act 2 was really just kind of the individual just working hard, you know, just working hard, kind of keeping himself distracted from the fact that his dad died, and you know, just shoveling, doing like a lot of just grunt work. And then things start to taper off towards the end of the day where, you know, he's not as busy, he's not as distracted, and now he can regretfully remember the day that his dad died, and so he's just tormented with this. Gerald Undone actually mentioned this, that he got some No Country for Old Men vibes. Well, that I was heavily trying to pull some No Country for Old Men. Love that film, it's one of my favorite movies, and I just think they have just some of the best imagery. So I'm thankful that other people caught it and that it was really good. That just made like my heart melt, so thank you. We wanted to showcase the character in the car driving and then kind of starting to flash and change, and as they're in bed they're tormented by this thought of death and wanting to leave the world, and really struggled with torment. And so that's where like imagery starts flashing and things get a little chaotic, and we start to figure out, is he dreaming or is this real? What's really going on? Then as he's tossing and turning in bed, he wakes up and he's wearing a space helmet. That was another shot that I was like easily able to replicate the way I wanted to replicate it. As far as making the film, that's how we did pre-production, and now we're gonna get to the day of shooting. We shot this video over the course of probably 3 days total. The first day we shot all the exteriors of Justice working. You know, he's out in the truck, he's driving, he's loading up the truck, emptying the truck, he's digging. This was actually a cool shot that my buddy Josh said that we should do. He was like, why don't you shoot through the windows? So we rolled the windows down to the truck and did like this long pan. We just thought it'd be really cool, really long. It took like 5 or 6 tries to pull focus, but it worked out pretty well. We got to the spot probably 2 hours before we started shooting, which I think is like super important if you're wanting to look at something and figure out what you're wanting to shoot. It's good to scout out the location beforehand. But we started shooting at golden hour and we got that really beautiful yellow light that I was looking for. And then I wanted to showcase the transition into blue hour, and that's where we started getting him walking through the field. Everything starts to cool down a little bit and he has a little bit more time to think and regret the day that his dad died. Kind of that confusing part in the film where it's like, is this happening or is this a dream? You know, is he going to outer space or is he having a nightmare? And so what we wanted to do is I wanted to replicate like the ground shaking as if a rocket was taking off. And so we just built a little frame, we put some dirt down, and I just started hitting the bottom. I mean, it was kind of a goofy way of doing it, but it worked. Another thing that we went into when we shot, we did the propane tank. And this was kind of a fun one. So I just rigged up a propane tank on a bunch of stands with a grip, and I just shot it down at an angle to showcase like a rocket taking off. For the truck shots, what we did was we put a Manfrotto suction cup on the car, we rigged it out, and it created that camera shake on the truck, which is really exactly what I wanted. And so when we looked back on it, I was really excited about how that turned out. There's not a lot that you can do on the Nikon as far as like picture profiles, and so we were just kind of like diligently trying to make sure that we expose for the highlights and get the best exposure out of camera that we could. And you'll see in post-production that I actually did a very minimal grade. I just added grain, and I'll kind of explain that in post-production a little bit. Okay, so here we have post-production. You'll see we have a timeline, and you'll see as you kind of look at this timeline, you'll see that we don't have a lot of video clips, but we have a lot of audio clips. To really lock in sound design, what I did was I actually would mute the music track, and I would just play the film silently and try to look at the imagery and figure out what sounds needed to go where. If you're wanting to do sound design, I think a great tip for that is to shoot with a track in mind, have the track on your playlist, but then when you're wanting to add sound design, mute that track and just watch the video clips on its own. A lot of you were asking like how we color graded the footage on the Nikon. I ended up using Film Convert to grade the footage, and so I did very minimal changes to the film, but in camera there's not a lot you can do on the Nikons. I think I should try to get it as like neutral as I possibly could, but the color grade process, I mean, here's what it looked like out of camera, and again, we tried our hardest to expose for the highlights, but when you throw on that look that I created, it just kind of darkens everything a little bit. It adds a little bit of gold. It warmed up the image a little bit, but that was just like a preset that I created for the Nikon. Again, here's a shot of him like wiping his head. Here's what it looks like on with the grade, but here's what it looks like off. So you can see that the blues are okay. I think the one thing I did was I leaned in on the image not looking as good as it could, and I added grain to it. I wanted it to feel a little bit grimier, so with Film Convert, I added like 35mm grain. And then I also did this thing where when he's losing his mind, I wanted his face to like fall apart. And so that's where this came in. And this was like the tiniest segment of the film. Like, I don't even know if people caught it, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but I wanted his face to look like it's like ripping apart. And so I did another After Effects transition, and I think it's like cards or something, and it makes like a bunch of squares, and then you can make the squares a lot smaller. And that's what created like this look of his face like just being like ripped to shreds. really, that is the film. From pre-production, production, to post-production. We put it all together in a timeline. It matched up pretty well. So some things that I would change in the film is there's a point where he's talking, where he's looking up to the stars. I dropped the audio a little bit lower than I wanted, but at this point I'd already uploaded it to YouTube and I didn't want to go back and change it. I just decided to leave it. And the last thing I think I would have changed was the intro shots were shot at a different time of day, and then when it flashes to the oil rig, it was shot at a different time of day, so the colors don't match up. And I think I wish I would have gone back the day that we shot those shots of Justice running through the field, and I would have gotten the oil rig so that the colors were all consistent and the time of day was consistent. I didn't do that, and I think that's one thing I look back and I would have changed. Some things I learned with shooting this film was I used Milanote, and you can use Milanote on your phone to see your storyboard. The thing that I realized was when we got to where we were, I didn't have cell service, and so I couldn't access any of the storyboarding of our film on my phone. And so one tip that I would have is, if you have your storyboard, print it out. Print it out, write it down, whatever you need to do. Have a hard copy, because you never know where you're going to be where you don't have cell service. Thank you to everybody who just shared love on the film, and thank you to everybody who helped with the film. If you have any questions regarding the film or video or the Nikon or whatever it is, I want to be able to help. So just ask any question down below in the comments, and I want to be able to answer those. And hopefully this helps you on your next short film, and hopefully you got something out of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good day. See ya.